All right, so this is our first podcast between, obviously, for those of you that know us, Cole Poots here, and I'm Dakota Phillips. This is a relatively new thing for us. I mean, this is just a thing we kind of came up with, I guess. You know, podcast is just something we kind of recently been looking into.
Don't hate on us. This is the first one, so we don't really have a name. But hey, we're all ears. If you guys got any ideas, maybe the best one could win a chance to be on a podcast of ours.
A few quarters, maybe $1.
I mean,
you know, yeah,
maybe
whichever you prefer.
People excited, you know.
But anyway, our whole reason for starting these, you know, we've got all these ideas out on the table and whatnot. But one of the many things we want to accomplish with these podcasts is a sense of educational purpose. We want the viewers to learn something from every single podcast that we happen to make. You know, if this becomes more of a routine thing anyway. So today we have a few things out on the table that we're going to talk about. The very first one is pet peeves. Cole, do you have any specific thing with pet peeves that you might want to share?
Yeah, like, I think a lot of people can relate on this issue, but bad drivers drive me insane. No mention for the pun right there, but yeah, bad drivers, they drive me insane. And I think maybe the reason where it comes from for me is my dad had terrible road rage growing up, and so as a kid, you know, being in the car, coming home or whatever, and he'd be getting pissed at everybody for everything, for not using turning signals, going through stop signs, like whatever. People that just threaten your chance while you're on the road. And so, yeah, and I'm not even just like excluding women drivers because they get a bad rap a lot of the time. I'm saying anybody, like people our age, like there's teens out there getting these nice cars.
Yep. But becoming more of a real thing.
Like they're the most inexperienced. They haven't had much time to be on the road and like really learn the in and outs. Because I know when I first started driving, I was terrible. Mm-hmm. I made bad decisions. Yeah, I probably cut people off like nearly. There's a couple times I've almost gotten a crash, and I was like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, bad drivers, man. They really piss me off because it's like you have so much life in your hands and not in your hands.
Yeah, it's a risk every day. I mean, once you go out on that road, you know, it's an immediate risk to you and yourself. I mean, not that it's going to be your fault or say the other person, you know, other people driving and stuff, but there's a literal danger, you know, when you go out there and drive. It's like you got the hands of yourself, whoever's in the car, you know, but other people as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like it's unforgiving out there, and you really got to be smart because you're operating a vehicle that has a lot of power that can do a lot of damage. It's just sad to see, and it's like so many times that, I mean, for the most part, when you come up on people and they're not really paying attention, usually the reason is they're on their phones or something. Mm-hmm. You know, we get distracted by those damn things, and I mean, I can attest to that. I'm sure you can as well. Like all of us get distracted by these things.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you know, it's different for everyone. For me, it's more of I don't know, when the only time I ever really use my phone when I'm driving, I'm sure you've probably seen it before, is, for one thing, I gotta say Siri is very, very useful in those situations, because all I have to do is, you know, I have to kind of reach for my phone, you know, as I'm driving. I can keep my eye on the road, but reach for my phone and, you know, hold down the button for a couple seconds and then ask Siri, you know, hey, call this person, or, you know, play this song, because I have it hooked up to the stereo and whatnot.
But are you one of those people that text and drive?
No. You know, ever since, I guess I never really had anything that truly taught me to not text and drive, but I guess it was just more like common courtesy. You know, it's like I'm looking out for others as well as myself. So I don't want to, you know, be the one to end someone's life that way.
It just scares me because it's like you can literally take your eyes off the road for what you think is a fraction of a second, and in that fraction of a second, you could completely, you know, hit somebody. You're not paying attention. You know, you're putting the focus into that phone, and I mean, I've been victim to it, but I think as I got older, I was like, you know what, it's not even worth it. Yeah, there's been a couple times where I almost got in a crash because I was looking at my phone. I'm like, you know what, screw that.
Well, in that same sense, you know, it's like you're ending your life over something that's, you could almost call the person for it too, you know. I mean, if it's that important, you know, at least call them and, you know, let them know. Whereas if you text, you know, and I've noticed, you know, I'm not saying I haven't ever done it before, but I've definitely stopped because at first when I first started driving, it seemed like it's something so new to me, and it was so fascinating to be driving, such a vehicle and all that. But you bring out your phone, you don't realize just how long you look away from the road.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some study out on that too, but what feels like 2 seconds to you're kind of glancing down can turn into 6 seconds, and that's all it takes is for some accident to happen. It may be minor, maybe major, but either way, it's definitely bad on the record too. That's for one thing.
Yeah.
But
so, what's your pet peeve?
I've got many of them.
Bothers you, man?
I would say, a lot of stuff springs to mind. I'm gonna say that probably the top pet peeve that I have is when people cannot be them true selves, and this applies to many situations. And I think the one that kind of pops to mind the most is when people are around their friends, and this can happen in relationships. It can happen outside of it. When they're around their friends and they manipulate themselves or change themselves into a different person around their friends, and that's why you see a lot of guys that they turn into douchebags. A lot of people turn into these like just different people who are around other people. It amazes me.
It kind of reminds me of like the movie Split, and that
Yeah.
I know that that's like a disease and that's a touchy subject, but it's like the people, they're living all these personalities trying to fill up what they think is like popular, like what's going to get people to like them, when it's like, dude, just be your true self. Instead of, it's like they pick and choose all these different areas and they just kind of like throw it into a mash.
Yeah. That's,
You know what I mean?
That's actually a really interesting perspective on that too, because
And Split is a great movie, by the way.
it is.
That's
It's
a
a fantastic movie.
Not
If you
to-
haven't seen it, go and see
Not
it.
to discourage anything about that topic, because that's very interesting to me as well.
I don't even know. Is that still in theaters? I don't know. It's probably
no.
somewhere. I don't know. But getting back on track anyway. So when people can't be them true selves, and I understand, when you change minuscule things about yourself, like you're more into sports than I am. I'll go over to your house and stuff, and I get much more amped up for sports. Maybe if it's not even my team, it may be yours. And it's like I want them to win.
Yeah.
But when you're changing your whole persona just to almost like adapt and fit into the friends that you're with, it's like that either leads me to believe that you need to find new friends, or you need to find yourself. You need to figure yourself out more, because it's almost embarrassing how much I see that anymore.
If it's not for the people and they don't accept you for who you are, then you should not be hanging out with them. If you feel the need that you have to change your personality or you have to act and talk different, that's not fair, because no one should have to be changed. I mean, I understand that we all got problems, but like, you shouldn't have to be changed by the people that you hang out with. You shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah, no, there's no reason for it. I mean,
Like, you and I are best friends because we complement each other, and we're very much different, but it very much works out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's the perfect balance, and that's what people got to find.
yeah. I mean, there's just things that I think a lot of people have to understand this too. They have to realize that no person is perfect, obviously. Your friends are never going to be perfect. The person that you're with in a relationship is never going to fit that perfect idea that you have. No. And the thing that you just have to learn is to live with those things. I can't remember who it was that sort of spoke on that. And they said, you just have to find the ones that are worth suffering for, I guess, in a sense. And not saying suffer as in, if you're in an abusive relationship of any sort, don't stay in that by any means. Like, that's terrible. Do everything you can to get out of that. But yeah, I mean, that's really all it is. When people can't be them true selves, when they're having to change themselves as a whole to fit in their group of friends, it's like, man, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I took it upon myself to look up, why do we get these pet peeves? Why do we get annoyed by certain things? And there's studies done, but surprisingly, none of the research has actually like found anything noteworthy, I guess, that you can say, why we get annoyed. It's like there's no actual like specific reason.
Nothing
Just
like
yet.
attributes to the reason.
As far as that article that I found anyway, which is on, I believe it's who.co. I believe that was the website. I might have to double check again, but it was some article on there. But they had said, they had these theories and everything. We all have these theories. They mentioned something on how it goes back to like our primal like survival needs almost. And so they brought up this it was an example. There was this guy on a train and stuff, and if he's coughing, he's sneezing and stuff just repeatedly, if you get annoyed by that, that's almost like your instincts telling you to get out of that situation because he's sick, or something of some sort. He's spreading something So they're theorizing that, is that a right word? Is that a word? Theorizing. Anyway,
Theoretical.
theoretically they're saying that essentially that those are your survival instincts kicking in and telling you to like remove yourself from that situation, even though you probably can't on a train. You can go to the next, next part of the train or whatever. But
That's pretty crazy.
it's interesting to say the least. I mean, the fact that for one thing they don't have any research done, or at least adequate research.
Because like I know that I've seen this before, that like certain areas of your brain, when you feel like emotion or like love or something, and they've actually done tests like in that area of your brain, like the part that's reacting when you feel that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think from why we get annoyed that would be easy to track down, but that's kind of crazy thing.
Yeah.
Just attribute it to.
It's amazing. It kind of makes me wonder where we're at as far as technology. It's almost like he expect us to be excelling in it. Like when we grew up in the 90s and stuff, things were just almost booming. And I'm not sure if that was really the era for that, but I know that just growing up in that certain time period, it was like just everything amazed me as a child. And I'm sure that has to deal with,
I think
being a child and all, but
I think it also is like with, definitely like the timing and what different countries were doing, and as far as like here in the U.S., like it was a competition. Like right now, everybody's kind of gotten to the same level, and then there's some countries that still have yet to kind of get to where we're at. But it was like back then, everything was like competition based driven.
Yeah.
So like countries were like, oh, I got to be better than this one, and just kind of like jump it, like leapfrog.
How to be ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I can't say what year specifically or when these years were, but when they started launching satellites into space, or whoever landed on the moon first, everyone was racing to be that first one on the moon. I'm pretty sure that's how it was.
Yep. So that competition.
And it's almost sad to say that that's what was driving everyone, is like the competition aspect, where we can't just be doing good for ourselves. We can't be discovering this for ourselves. It has to be. But anyway, so moving on, we have the next topic here, which is fear, and this can be anything irrational. This can be anything that really springs to mind with fear. Do you have any like fears that come?
First of all, fear boners. I want to talk about this.
That's
Fear boners, if you guys have not heard of it, I can't remember where I heard it from. I want to say like a TV show or something that I watched, but fear boner is essentially what you hear it as. You're in so much like shock and fear that you pop a boner. And I want you guys to leave comments, and I want you to tell me if you've heard of it, because I ran this by Dakota before and other people, and they have not heard of it.
Haven't heard of it.
So I want your guys'
now.
I want your guys' feedback on that, because that would be interesting to see. But
I would love to read on that, because it's such a relatively new term to me, and that we tried to make a podcast before this one. It just kind of went to hell. We had no idea what we were doing, but now that we've kind of got the hang of it, and that podcast he brought up fear boner, and it surprised me. I was like, I have never heard of this in my life, and the fact that that's some response to stress or fear, whatever you want to call it.
It could be like a natural, like, reaction response in your body that sometimes, you pop a fear boner.
Hey, it may be a thing. Whatever reason that is, whatever survival instinct's kicking in, telling you to pop a boner, man, I don't know. Somehow it works out in the end.
Anyways,
hey, whatever.
Let us know what you think on fear boners. But, my fear, at least what I wrote down, is, I'm fearful of like regular things that everybody probably thinks about. Dying alone. I would hate to die alone. That just like leaves an empty pit in my stomach thinking about it. And then not falling in love. Those kind of, it kind of goes hand in hand. Like if you don't fall in love, and you kind of fear that like dying alone, you won't, live with somebody for the rest of your life. Or like, I always fear like if you were married and then your spouse dies, and then you're kind of at that point where, for the most part, like you can't really, at that age, you probably don't feel like going out. And, depending on how old you are, I guess. But that would just be like the worst feeling, and then you wouldn't have your spouse for the remaining years that you're on this earth.
Actually, I hadn't even thought about that. Now that you mentioned that, it's almost a fear of mine. I think it's a fear of everyone's. Like no one wants to die alone. That's one thing that's just.
I know that there's certain people on the planet that they work well by themselves, but not to say that those people feel that they would hate to die alone.
Yeah.
even though they work well, like doing things on like by themselves. You
Yeah.
know, they're not necessarily team oriented. They're more like self oriented in how they work.
Yeah. That, I mean, that goes with everyone. I mean, I've always considered myself to be more introverted in the sense, that I want to work by myself. That's just how I get things done. That's how I work best. And in any scenario, obviously, I see the benefits of teamwork. Cooperation. It's the greatest thing ever. But certain things I just work better with by myself, especially like creation and all that. Really anything artist wise, I would say. But anyway, I guess I'll move on to my fear here. Okay, actually, I'm going to add on to that. So the introspected part, in the fact that I work better by myself, I still have that feeling like I'd be afraid to die alone. Like I know I need people. You never know. I can't leave for like a week, knowing that at the end, I'm gonna want to see you guys. I'm gonna see the family. I'm gonna want to meet new people. That's just like not a new thing, something that people just want to experience. They want to experience life for how it is. They want to experience it with others. And I get that, completely. No matter how independent you are, you need others. That some of the most independent people I've met, it's just really weird. Joe Rogan, he put it best when he said we all kind of work as like a one giant organism. It's like we work together and we need each other to survive almost. Like even though it's not a instinct, nothing primal, we just need each other as a whole. And that when he said it, it actually makes sense. It's almost kind of creepy and eerie how much that makes sense.
Kind of going along with that. Like one thing that I wanted to add too is I think that like people they get too caught up on like the material things in life, like cars, the big house, clothes, and showing off what that they have. That kind of feeds into like that loneliness. These people feel, and it could also go along with your pet peeve, like people not being themselves. They use all these aspects of life that, like honestly, yeah, okay, that's cool, and everybody's got like hobbies and things that they like if you like cars, but if you use that to fill a void, like what are you really doing with your time on this earth? Like, okay, yeah, you impress some people for, I don't know, 10 years that you had that shit.
Yeah, in that same sense, I've always felt that, everyone's always looking for the meaning in life, some reason for our being here.
Yeah.
And no one knows it for sure. Well, and with that being said, I think truly the meaning of life is to create a meaning for yourself, almost like individually.
Some people value money.
Yeah.
Some people just value success as building their brand, getting recognition.
Materialistic things, man.
And that's all, like, I respect all of that. But yeah, like, I challenge people like that. And like you said, it goes along with your pet peeve that it's like filling this void. Yep. And it's just like, man, that's sad. I mean, because how long does that last? Like, how far does that get you, really? But I know you have an interesting fear because you've told me about it before.
Yes.
So
well, it comes across very irrational. Now that you bring yours up, I don't think it's going to be much of a talking point. But my fear would be, it's an irrational fear in the sense that I don't like people being behind me. And this, I can only think of like one instance because it happens, I want to say rarely. I have people behind me all the time. If you're in the mall, wherever, just some public place, you're gonna have people behind you, which doesn't scare me, But it's just like it's the oddest times, especially when I'm going to the restroom. Like say you're in the mall and stuff, when you're pissing in the urinal and everything. It's like you have these shadows walking behind you. I can see it, as I'm doing my business and stuff, and I just kind of get that, that weird feeling, someone's behind me. They could just, at any point, just stick a needle in my neck or something and make me pass out. It's like, it freaks me out a little bit. I feel like it's irrational, but in the same sense,
I feel like you'd be one of those guys like on those prank videos or whatever, and someone's trying to scare them, and then the guy that's getting scared reacts in like a knockout punch.
It just knocks them out.
You just like knock them out if they're like trying to prank you. So it's like, damn, maybe I shouldn't prank you.
Well, it's scary, yeah, because I think one day it's gonna be you or my nephew or someone. I'm gonna feel so terrible after that. It's like, man, you shouldn't have done that. I already told you.
Knockout.
This fear.
Punch. He's done. He's
leaving. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It comes across very irrational when you have fears like yours and all that. It's like, well, when I grew up, one of my biggest fears, and I think my parents can attest to this, my biggest fear was tornadoes. And I don't know
Oh,
why, it's
tornadoes
a
are scary.
huge destructive force, and
Oh, terrifying.
I think growing up in Iowa, you almost you become curious about tornadoes. When we have this bad weather, I don't see it really anywhere else. As soon as you hear or see of a tornado warning, it's like you immediately go outside and you're like, where's this thing? Where's the blasted damn thing? It's like, it's interesting. You want to see this destructive force that could very well just end your life right then and there.
I think I've always been intrigued by, just storms in general. And I think the one year that I can recall that we did have a tornado here in Indianola, I can't remember what year. I think it was like 2011 or 12 or somewhere around there, or maybe before. And me and my dad, we just came outside, we sat in the garage, and we were watching the tornado. Like, I think it hit the part of town, actually where I live out now, by Wilder, and we used to live out by John Deere.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
we were just watching it because it didn't hit this side of town. It hit the Wilder side. But yeah, like fascinated by that. I've always loved storms.
It was terrifying when I was little. I mean, it still is. If it gets really crazy outside, you kind of begin to wonder. It's like, oh, how long do I have to live? You're kind of sitting there pondering, but it's more of a exhilarating experience now for me. It's like as a kid, I was running up to my mom and any friends that I had there. I was like, should we get in the basement? I'm going like paler than I already am. I'm like, oh, do we go in the basement? I'm shaking and stuff, but
It's definitely a thrill ride.
yeah.
Seeking, and people that go in to that profession that chase storms, they definitely have to have that adrenaline rush that they seek. And props to them, because that's scary.
Those are the crazies, man. But I respect what they do, because they keep people safe.
Have you seen like the videos about like the tanks that they literally, like the armor they put on these cars, specifically for people that have that job? It's amazing. It's like army tanks. It's like army tanks. They build this armor that these cars go out into, and they collect all this data about storms and stuff. Like, I watched a documentary on it. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like,
well, they purposely make those things heavy as hell too, so they don't, or they have a lesser chance of getting carried away. Granted, if they get caught in that. But.
Well, it's like really though, because they're going into the belly of the beast, that storm, and it's just like that's just so scary.
Yeah. But there's some people in this world that I respect them entirely, because for what they do, it's terrifying, but they keep people safe. They watch where this thing's going, But that's just.
Well, without them, we wouldn't have knowledge about tornadoes, because they go in there and they collect data and how these things work and how to detect them. So I'm like, you know what? That's crazy, man. They're risking their lives, for us to have this information.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely respect that.
They're keeping us where we're at. I mean, it's just little things like that. Okay, it's not even little. I'm not going to say it's little. It's the things like that people often, it goes unrecognized. People often don't really pay attention to that. They're just like, oh, the guys are crazy. They're chasing tornadoes and all that. But it's like, man, they are keeping you safe. They're making sure that tornado's like, not coming the way. Not that they can stop it, but they're at least going to let you know, like, hey, you should probably either move or get in the basement.
It's almost a more effective way than like people. What is the word I'm looking for? Weather people, like on news channels. What are they called?
Oh, I should know this. This is terrible. Like meteorologist type of deal. Yeah.
Like, because a lot of them, they can actually be like very wrong on how they predict weather.
Yeah.
So it's like almost the people that go into the storms have a better knowledge of what's going to happen and how powerful the storm is, rather than the people who are sitting inside.
It's an entirely smart field. The people that go into that. Well, for one thing, I read one time too about how they predict storms and stuff, and just with the factor wind alone. It's so very hard to tell how it's going to react to certain like environments, climates and all that. It's almost terrifying, just like how wrong they can be sometimes, because the wind is so unpredictable. It's like you can't really tell what it's going to do. It's like, man, I can't see in the future.
It can knock down houses. It can knock down trees. It can move cars.
Yeah,
it's a freaking death machine.
I think growing up as a child, that's the kind of stuff that makes me think this way too. It's like that rational fear that this tornado could definitely devastate your life. But now that you grew up in Iowa, you just don't.
I would love to see one.
Yeah,
as long as it doesn't involve me and it doesn't involve anybody getting hurt, I would love to see one.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's depending on where it's at.
Wonders of nature. They're amazing.
Okay, and then the last topic that we're going to talk about is kind of one that I was thinking about, and I kind of want it almost for open discussion too, like because it's kind of, it could go either way. It's up for interpretation. So technology, and I kind of feel like from what we talked about the first two, it kind of goes along with it because we're just talking about a good side of technology with storm chasers and those cars and computers and satellites and everything that they have in there. So I guess, my challenge is technology can be used in so many good ways, and we know a lot of the good ways that it is used in for like research and all that. But then there's like, in today's world, you got these damn fidget spinners right here. This is what we have.
This is my nephew's, by the way. This is not ours.
This is what's popular.
We do not atone to this.
This is what's popular.
Well, the sad thing is, when I think of the fidget spinners and all that, it definitely helps some people. I've seen it. It works for anxiety and all these things to at least, toy around with, keep your mind preoccupied instead of having your thoughts travel off. But it's become a mainstream thing. And unfortunately, now I feel like people aren't going to get the help that I guess they can get the help that they need because these things are, for the most part, they're everywhere.
I think they're used in the wrong way, and I like the point that you brought up and the good ways that they can be used for. But they've literally become like this social trend, and they've been communicated through social media, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, all that. And like, for what reason? Like you're just spinning it on your finger when like there's much more like valuable time being wasted where technology can go in like different areas. And I'm all about like increasing awareness and bringing recognition to your product. So I don't know if some dude created this and then maybe he just put it up on social media and it blew up. Like I kind of want to know where these came from. And in that sense, I respect that. But at the same time, I think people are using these in the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, in that same sense that I was talking about earlier, I can't remember who it was that I spoke to. I don't know if it was you. Maybe my mom. I don't really know who it was, but I know my nephew got this, and he, for the most part, I can't tell. He doesn't have anxiety. He doesn't have any of this, but they used to bring it to class as soon as it was coming out, and now that's become a normal thing. It was disruptive to the class, so they told them they can't bring it to class anymore. And so I'm thinking, like, what about the kids that do have anxiety?
Yeah.
So what can they do? It's like I'm sure there's another alternate route they can take, but they can at least talk to the teacher and say, "Hey, I really need this." Have your parents talk to them, but it's just saddening, I mean, I can definitely see how kids can think that's cool. If I were a kid, I'd probably be like, oh, hell yeah, I'd want that. It's just something a little simple to pass the time, I guess. But it's, I'm just hoping it doesn't get to the point that it becomes like a pandemic almost. Like you can't take it in the classroom, can't be doing all this that it really should be used for, but instead it's a cool little gadget that unfortunately it's become. But yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think because there was that trend with hoverboards, and I feel like that had more significance because that could at least like transport you. Like, let's say that you're a young kid and you're not at the point where you can drive a car, you don't have a bike or something, and you want to go over to your friends. Hey, at least you can hop on your hoverboard as long as it's charged. Like that somewhat serves a purpose. This is like you're just spinning it on your fingers and you're staring at it. And I respect the whole thing with people that need it.
There's always exceptions to the rule. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I guess that's my challenge to people. And like we were talking about earlier with like phones and driving. There is a lot of good in the world. Like phones, they can do so much for us. Like, I really take advantage of the GPS when I'm going places that I have no idea. Like you can text, you can call. So yeah, if you're like you're in a situation and you need help, you can call somebody. It's really just right there. It's, within arm's reach. Yeah. And so all that's good. And then it's things like this, like fidget spinners, like social media that people get too caught up on. And I guess that's like where I want to see things kind of shift because there's a lot of bad things in this world. And if we could just kind of like shift our focus, I feel like it could fix a lot of problems.
It definitely could. It could be used for a lot better things than what we've got going for us right now anyway. But what time are we at here? We're getting pretty lengthy.
Yeah, we got 30 minutes.
Oh, damn. All right.
Yeah.
I do want to end this on a pretty strange note here. I just want to stop and say how much you remind me of Charles Bronson right now. For those of you that know him, I have a mental picture. I'm going to put it on too on the video. A mental picture that I have right now. He's wearing almost the same glasses. I think they're a tad smaller though, a little bit smaller. But you got the stash going on. I think you're Charles Bronson in another life.
I would like to think that. I would hope I would look that big.
Yeah. But, Tom Hardy, when he played as Charles Bronson.
Yeah, I'm kind of far away from that.
Yeah. So. Someday, maybe for both of us.
But
I don't think we'll get the stash
either. I think that's a good place to end it, though.
I think so.
If you guys like the video, we would love for you to share it and give us your thoughts and opinions. I mean, we would hope that this is a regular thing. This is our first one, so give us some feedback.